Hey, and welcome to this course on content. Now, this course we're about to jump to is going to be broken into two parts. This first video will be predominantly about the theory, basically what you should write, what you shouldn't write, looking at the intricacies of sort of like what is good content versus bad content, how to define what you're going to write. And the second video in this content section of the module will actually be about the on-page factors, how when you write, you need to include certain things. So let's jump into it. So as I said here, I've covered this already. The main points in this video are what content you should write, good versus bad on-page SEO, good, easy ways to spot it. And then evergreen content versus topical content, which I think is really important to address as a startup before you go into, writing content and making sure that basically you want to make sure that you have direction before you start looking at the on-page stuff. Not just keyword direction, that's important, but you have direction in terms of what appears, what things appear on the page, what you're letting drive those actions in what you write content for. We'll get into that in a moment. And then, as I said, video 2 will be your on-page factor video, which will be much more in depth than this one point here, but you get the picture. So primarily, the main question, as I said, is what content should you write? Now, if you are in this SEO module, obviously you're going to think that it's going to be keyword driven and you're going to be correct there. But I think it's important to step back and look at, what pages should you be writing? What pages should be on your website as a SaaS company, as a SaaS brand, and what you actually, when you should engage in those things and what ones are important, right? So as a SaaS, if you have had a look at any of the really big guys, right? Generally, it's like your MailChimps, etc. You'll see that they have 3 main types of content. So landing page content, blog content, and customer support content. Now landing page content, you're all aware of, I'm sure. It's your home page, it's services pages, your features pages, or potentially industry pages as well. So, if you are a specific solution for restaurants or for a particular type of market, maybe you are a SaaS solution for lawyers and accountants, that would be something that you include. If you're for restaurants, you'd include maybe an industry page or whatever, marketing tools for, email marketing tool for restaurants, that sort of thing. So these pages are the main pages where obviously you want to drive bottom of the funnel traffic. You want people who come to these pages to be interested in buying from you. They're not just landing pages, I guess, they're also sort of pages that enable sales, right? So important pages to have, of course, important pages for you to have SEO'd as well, but pretty run-of-the-mill stuff. Second is blog content. Now, that, you need to write blog content to be able to rank. We've probably definitely covered this a number of times already, at least touched on this or in the course. And you want to make sure that you are writing that. And you want to make sure that it's SEO'd. And a lot of SaaS companies, when they do start to engage in blog content, it's more in this thought leadership type of thing. And while that's good, I want you to really think about writing this for SEO marketing purposes when you're very early on, because you want to start to get ROI. You want to start to get people who are going to buy from you as fast as possible. So in my opinion, most of the content should be originally about SEO related things or things you can tie back to SEO. That's your growth engine, right? Or part of your growth engine will be this working. So number 3 is customer support content. Now this content generally helps users navigate your SaaS. Now, maybe you could label it under sort of like retention content almost, or help content. This sort of stuff is important because you want the people who are going to be trying to use your SaaS to be able to figure out how to do the things they need to do. Now, you can have internal guides, you can have all sorts of things, you can have webinars that you do this on, you can have an onboarding process that helps them. But I think it's really important to remember that not everybody's going to go through all those things, not everybody likes to do all those things, and not everybody has the time, right? Some people just need a quick answer, they just want to flip to a piece of content, scroll to wherever they got stuck. Okay, that solved my problem, it took me 5 seconds to do that, and then go back to doing whatever they were doing, right? There's other reasons why I think it's important. It can also be a really big driver for SEO traffic for you. And I think this is one thing that's really overlooked by SaaS companies a lot. It's really overlooked by a lot of people in that this customer support content can actually start to rank for keywords that you wouldn't expect And it can actually help inform an overall content strategy moving forward, as well as working as retention. It can actually work as acquisition to some degree in bringing people to you who are trying to solve a problem, who actually may be using another company. And if they can come to you and your support content, see that it's easy, they might stay. If they can come to you and you have the solution, you know, although they're not there to like convert, you're planting a seed then for them that this is easy, right? Imagine if you were using, say, MailChimp, and every time you searched for, you know, how do I add images in MailChimp, or, you know, maybe I search for how to add a list. And every time I search for something like that, I was finding that there were a lot of results around how to do that on, you know, an alternate provider. In the beginning, I probably wouldn't want to convert immediately, right? But I think over time, what I get is like, these guys seem to have this, and I'm struggling to find this for my side, you know, for what I'm using for MailChimp or whatever. And maybe I'm going to make a switch. So it's important to see. And I just want to contextualize that a little bit for you, right? So here's two examples, right? So help.salesforce.com, all of their support content, right? So this is actually just the subdomain of the main one. And you can see here, just this subdomain, this help.salesforce.com. It ranks for 915,000 keywords. It's got a 561,000 backlinks from 10,000 different domains, right? That's a lot, right? That's a lot of SEO value built into this thing, right? And now that's a huge example. Salesforce is a massive example. But to contextualize a little bit for maybe a smaller SaaS company, this is a client here that we've got as well, distro.com. So they're a cannabis solution. And you can see here that they've got 112 backlinks from 24 domains for the help.distro.com, right? You can see they're ranking for 71 keywords. Now they're much, much smaller. The help documentation isn't as built out as this. It's not searched for as much as Salesforce, but give it maybe 3 or 5 years, see how this grows, right? As they expand and build on their software, as things get larger, you're going to see that this is actually going to start to grow and grow and grow. Now, obviously, that has flow-on benefits, right? So you can see here on the left will be distro, and then on the right will be Salesforce. I should have labeled that before we got into this, but you can see how the difference is. They're like organic keywords here on this one on the left here, 71, that bottom orange table there. So 71 organic keywords. You can see how this has been growing up over the time. You can see the organic traffic's been growing for this help document over time. And then on the right, you see Salesforce has done this, and it's been growing, you know, crazily. Now, funny enough, this graph here, this one on the right for Salesforce, it's got 75,000 keywords, 75,000 in organic traffic, and over 100,000 keywords ranking. This is actually something I took from a subfolder of theirs. So it's actually from, not just from help.salesforce.com. This is from help.salesforce.com/S, which is a subfolder that has only one particular section of that site under it. So imagine how much bigger this is. And I did have a bigger one here. It was very hard to make sense of, but I want to contextualize for you, you know, how big of a driver this can be. And it's not directly bottom of the funnel relatable traffic. I'm going to admit that you're probably not going to convert a ton of people initially off this, but I think it's really important brand builder, seed a bit of content, and it helps your current users anyway. So I'd really encourage you to think about weaving that into things. Now, that doesn't mean writing your help doc stuff with the intention to rank. Definitely help write it with the intention to help the people who are using your SaaS. But if you can weave a ranking keyword in there, great. When it starts to rank and you see that it starts to rank and maybe it's starting to get a ton of traffic, and that traffic maybe doesn't use you, and you'll be able to tell if it gets 12,000 hits on it and you don't have, you know, maybe you've got 12,000 users or something like that, and that's it. So every one of them would have to be hitting that or something to that effect. You'll see that, you'll understand that, obviously, when you look at it in analytics in hindsight. I want you to think about that, because I want you to think how that could drive for you writing broader topics around for SEO in the long run, right? So going back, what kind of content should you write before we move forward? Because I went pretty deep there into customer support content, landing page content, which is home pages, service pages, features pages, and industry pages. They're the main ones, at least. Blog page content, right? Writing the blog for SEO purposes. What do I want to rank? How do I want it to rank? You know, what kind of things would the people who would buy from us be searching? You know, what kind of Google searches do our customers make, so that we can sort of get in front of them and help them, teach them how to do something, and then convert them to our solution. Customer support content, again, we just covered that, so I won't go into it again. So now we know what the types, the types of pages. Let's look at what it's driven by, right? And in my opinion, it should be driven by these three things: keyword data, customer feedback, and informational necessity. Now you can imagine that informational necessity is definitely the support content, right? You need to help your users navigate your software, so you need to be writing this, right? But the others, keyword data makes more sense for blog posts. Customer feedback as well makes more sense for maybe blog posts as well as the customer support content, right? So you want to make sure that you're hitting at least one of these. If you can hit all three, that's great. But you want to make sure when you're writing content for SEO, at least, you go, okay, at the very least, it has to be backed by keyword data. However, if I'm going to write customer feedback, there's some customer feedback and I need to write a help doc on something, I may not be like, hey, I need to relate that to keyword data, but I will be writing it, right? So make sure when you're writing content, at least from a customer experience perspective, from an SEO perspective, you're trying to hit keyword data plus one of these things, if you can. That doesn't mean never write anything that doesn't hit keyword data, but keyword data will be intimately tied up into that. So how do we find that keyword data, right? Well, in module 1, we went through all this. We went through, how to find the right keywords. So in general, though, what you're looking for are high intent keywords, high volume and low difficulty. Now, if you're doing this, you're probably looking to do this for generally blog posts, but it can also be for your landing pages as well. It just depends on what niche you're in and how much of that is sort of already serviced, how established it is, or how new you are in terms of like being into that niche or developing out this niche, right? So if you hit the trifecta, high intent, high volume, low difficulty, that's a unicorn keyword for you. You want to be writing for that keyword. You want to be ranking for that keyword as fast as possible, because obviously if they're high volume and high intent and you write the best keyword and you rank number 1, and you can rank it fast because it's low difficulty, then that's where you're going to convert users, right? That's the trifecta. Now, not every keyword is like that. Many are not like that, right? That's why they're the unicorn keywords. But you want to be looking for this as much as possible. These are your big things that you're trying to find. So I understand that may be a little bit, hard to conceptualize. So let's take a real look at what that might look like. So if we go into here, that we've already used a template here. We've looked at this template in the previous one. This is a simplified version where I took some sort of off the cuff rankings for you. I think over here, I've got a more detailed out one that we did for somebody else that I can show you. Right. So here is, say, your KOB, your keyword research sheet, whatever you want to call it. And all of the keywords here are in this column, this B column. We've got our funnel stage as we'd set out in this other template, and we've got our likelihood to buy, which is essentially the attentive keyword, right? So it's named something different here. I could put this likelihood to buy. Make sure that we're using the same terminology, right? We've got a category. So this is basically broad categories you use to categorize content. You don't always need to have this. I find for me, it just simplifies things, makes it easy. Got volume of the keyword difficulty, the potential traffic of the keyword, and the traffic value, right? So here you can see that we've got a number of keywords here, and we've organized it generally here by our keyword difficulty. We're looking for low difficulty keywords. So all I did with that is I organized it A to Z, right? Low difficulty keywords are here all the way up to 71, right? 1 to 71. So I know that in terms of low difficulty, I'm probably looking at something between 1 and 15, maybe 1 and 20, depending on how authoritative I already am, right? So if we're looking at that, then we can see that this is going to be the main keyword we'd assume if we're looking for really low difficulty keywords to rank for, right? KD is keyword difficulty. If we go back over here, you can see difficulty to rank, that's KD, right? So let's copy that over. Let's make sure we're using the same thing. Difficulty to rank, right? So you can see here 1. Awesome. Next, we're looking at, okay, well, what is the volume of these keywords? So in terms of how many searches per month do they get inside of Google, right? So over here, we categorize that as volume searches per month, right? Drop that in there. Now it's the same. Cool. So we can see here that these first couple don't get a whole lot, right? So they're not very interesting to us. But we can see we're starting to get into some bigger numbers over here. Now, I've forgotten that I'd already done this and I've pre-filtered this for you, but what we here is have the funnel stage and the likelihood to buy over here. I know that we said top, middle, bottom here and medium, low, high, etc. in ours. You can use top, middle, bottom, medium, low. Here I use mofu, bofu, tofu, right? So middle of funnel, top of funnel, bottom of funnel, BUFU, bottom of funnel. You can see here that I've already pre-filtered this. So what I did, once I got this keyword difficulty, I ordered that out, right? Or I could have filtered that as well. I could say, hey, look, I want to filter by condition less than or equal to 20, let's say. Right, so we filtered all these bottom ones, and now we've got only what we're looking at. I can see that the volume searches per month, a lot of these first ones aren't good. And what I did over here is went over to the bottom of the funnel stage and said, well, if I want this to be a high converting sort of, I'm looking for this unicorn keyword, I might be looking at here, filtering this by middle of funnel and bottom of funnel, or just straight bottom of funnel maybe. And I want to go to my likelihood to buy for at least be moderate or high, right? So I do that. Right, so if I really wanted to do it, I could just go straight by high and have a look at what we've got available to us, right? So now I know that from doing this and looking at what do I want to write. So I'm back over here. I'm looking at over here. You can see, high intent, high volume, low difficulty. I've got high intent, bottom of funnel, high likelihood to buy based on what I believe, we do and how we understand the client, how we understand people might be searching for this. So these things here, these two are always going to be a little bit judgment and value based. You can set your own internal criteria for how you set that. A lot of it is really trying to put yourself into the shoes of somebody who will be searching, right? And thinking like they would think. And if you really know your customer, it's going to be really easy. So, okay, so I've got a bottom of funnel, I've got a likelihood to buy is high, and now I'm looking for what's got the highest searches and the lowest difficulty to rank. So I can see here that if I wanted to really go in for this, and I consider this anything at 20 or lower to be low difficulty, 3100 here, how to copyright a book. That's what I'd be engaging in. I'd be engaging in this as fast as I can, right? I'd be like, hey, this is the first thing that I want to write. I think people who want to know how to copyright a book might use my service. Now that could be because I'm a copywriter, or I have services where I can help somebody to copyright a book, right? Or I'm somebody who helps them in the book marketing stage. And if they're trying to copyright a book, more than likely they're trying to market the book after that before it goes out. They're self-publishing in that regard. So I'm saying, hey, I really want to get this person right now because it's highly likely that if they're trying to figure this out, they'll try and figure out the thing that I do next, right? So I can say, this is the keyword that I want to engage in. We've got low difficulty, high volume, high intent between these two things, right? I'm going to go and engage in that. It's 3,100 searches a month. Right, so obviously not everything's going to fall in this range. As you can see here, there's a lot of things here that just don't fall in that range in terms of searches per month. I may be able to go and filter out bottom of funnel from middle funnel. Don't have a lot in there either, right? What if I filtered into moderate? Likelihood to buy was moderate. I get a few more things, right? I get this one here, Amazon Author Central. Tons of searches a month. It's right in the right difficulty range. This is obviously going to give you an idea of how to head in that right direction. Now, it's important when you do this, even if you've done all this keyword research, these things can change, how these search results can change. So it's good to choose a couple that you want to engage in. And then from there, you go back and just check and do your research before you do engage in the writing and the briefing process before you sort of go down that run. But this is going to help you narrow down your thing and prioritize in a way that's smart, rather than prioritizing based on like gut feel or whatever you think is maybe popular. Cool. Back to the slides, right? I hope that was helpful. So now you see, what content you should write, right? High intent, high volume, and low difficulty. If you can't get that, try high intent and mid to low volume. Great. Mid to low volume and low difficulty, that's cool too. Basically, I would say you probably want to think of mid to high intent always in the beginning at the very least. Mid to high volume. Mid, high, or low volume is okay if the intent is high. Low difficulty obviously is going to be important in the beginning as well. The way that Google works is the more you rank for these low difficulty keywords, the more you're going to start to rank for the higher and higher difficulty keywords, and the easier it'll be for you, right? So you want to start thinking in that regard. ROI for this effort is what you want to get, and that's how you're going to get to it. So now we know what we're going to write. We've got to have a look at a little bit at good content versus bad content. And when I say good content versus bad content, I'm really speaking almost purely from an SEO aspect here. And this is sort of some really top line things that I just see come up a lot in terms of new people writing content or people being misled by, maybe crappy YouTube tutorials or something like that, where somebody really hasn't done this for a long time. I won't point fingers at any particular person or any particular place or whatever, but I mean, there are certain people who definitely are working on SEO from 2004 or 2014 or something like that, and not from today's algorithm standards. So good content is keyword targeted, makes sense for SEO, right? You want to target a keyword. In this example, we've got e-commerce marketing strategies as the keyword written on Shopify Plus. Good content also has links to relevant resources internally and externally. And this is important. Part of the on-page factors, we'll have a quick look at this as well. But you want to be linking to resources, right? It's very common that people who don't really know modern SEO will say, you want to not link out, you want to keep all the link value and juice on this one page that you wrote, because otherwise Google won't give it as much credit as it's due, or blah, blah, blah. It's really old SEO. It doesn't work. Don't stress about that. If you make a claim, you want to link out to something that can support your claim. Hey, 25% of this businesses fail in the first year. You can link out to a study that does that. It's perfectly all right. Our company helps people to do XYZ thing, and we've got some other resource on how to do ABC thing. You can link out to your own resources, right? Link to your other blog posts. You can link to your landing page in some instances as well. As long as it doesn't feel spammy, as long as it's natural and adds value to the reader, it should be fine, right? You don't want to overlink, you don't want to underlink. Third, good content has images, right? So I say images, but I really mean multimedia. Like it doesn't have to be a picture all the time. It doesn't have to be an illustration. It can be a video, it can be a GIF, it can be all sorts of things, but the really good content will have these multimedia aspects to them, because almost never the best way of like writing, telling somebody something, demonstrating something online is to have no other explainers or no other ways to help them visualize and understand the concept, right? Very few sources, even Wikipedia, as sparse as it can be sometimes, almost always has at least one image somewhere, whether that's in their side panel or whether that's part of the content somewhere, it's going to be there. And finally, good content is as long as it needs to be. So back to sort of like a lot of these people working on old SEO. It was a thing somewhere a couple of years ago where in SEO, you want to write 1,000 to 2,000 words to outrank whoever the top person is. That's not really the case anymore. You can rank without links in some cases. You can rank with 200 words on the page instead of like 1,200. Google's algorithm is really smart in figuring out what people want to see, what is good content, and answering the query now. And I think that for most people, it's important to just remember that you want to be comprehensive in what you write, but you don't want to be effusive, right? You don't want to write too much. You don't want to be too short either. You don't want to say, oh, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, when a little bit of explanation would have helped, right? So put yourself in the shoes of whoever you're writing for, whatever you're writing. Just go, hey, does that answer the main questions in my head, the doubts, those sorts of things? And if it does, you're probably on the right track. In contrast to that, bad content is keyword stuffed. So keyword stuff, as opposed to keyword targeting, is you're really trying to jam that keyword in there as much as possible. You're basically taking every paragraph and go, how can I get my keyword in this? And that's just, it feels spammy. If you are around, and most of you probably are, to remember the internet days where we were all on chat rooms and MSN, and every page on Google had like just this horrible written text. And it would be like, hey, the page is Red Sox. If you want to buy Red Sox. And the first paragraph would be like, hey, if you want to buy Red Sox in City, then the best place to buy Red Sox would be to come to buyredsox.com. We are the leading source of red socks that you can buy, Like, it was just terrible. It didn't add any value, didn't help you whatsoever. And really, like, you'd go there and you had a crappy experience anyway. You probably left most of the time, unless for whatever reason it was a really great deal. You don't want to be relying on that. You want people to stay and engage and really like your content. Brands are built off good content. Many are. And you want that. You want to, at the very least, come in with adequate, if not some of the best content people have ever seen. So second, it doesn't satisfy searcher intent, right? Bad content does not satisfy searcher intent. That means if someone writes about something, if you're writing a guide on, how to how to buy a good microphone or something like that. You don't want people to come there and start reading about something unrelated. Or a really good example would be, how to bake brownies, right? You've been to one of those recipe pages and you go to there and you go to like, okay, how to bake brownies. And then the first 1,000 words is a story about how someone grandmother every autumn would make brownies when they visited her house, and and it takes you 1,000 words of reading or scrolling at the very least, because you're not reading it all, right, to get to where the brownie recipe is. You don't want to do that to people. You don't want to be that annoying. It's a bad brand experience, bad SEO experience. Google's going to recognize it. Google wants answers to people's questions. It's an answer engine. It wants to know that it's going to show you, you're going to answer the user's going to be happy. They'll use Google again. Whether they use you or not is up to you and what you put on that page. Number 3, bad content has no sources. Make a claim, source it. It's just like university. You want to make sure that when you're making claims on something, or if you've got supporting content, that you are linking out to that person and say, hey, this is somebody who supports what I'm saying. Here's a way of you showing authority, right, to the user. It's also something Google measures. They want to know that you're going to outlink when it makes sense to do so, right? Now, that doesn't mean you've got to have 5 links every time you make some small claim, but if you're going to use one for a central part of your argument or a central part of a demonstration or something, then link to that. It's normal, it's natural. It doesn't have to be to a competitor if they've got content. Link to the next best one if that's something that worries you. Some people it doesn't, some people it does, but make sure you're linking out and you've got sources. And bad content finally has bad formatting, right? Nobody wants to see this block of text with no paragraph breakups. You can't tell where one idea ends and another one begins. You want to make sure that everything that you're going to be reading or that you're going to be putting up there for the user is formatted nicely. It makes sense. They can read it all, right? That includes like text size. It includes, how the paragraphs are laid out and the images are laid out on the content. It could include the color of the words too, right? You want it to be dark. You want people to be able to read it. So that's good content versus bad content, right? So now we've covered that. I hope that makes sense. I think it's really intuitive for most people, but sometimes it needs to be said because there are people out there who are going to try and lead you astray in this scenario. Finally, we'll move on to evergreen or topical content. Now, my opinion, I'm sure there are going to be people out there who disagree with me, but as a startup, in 95% of cases, you should be focused on evergreen content only. You do not want to be writing topical content, right? You want to be focused on the stuff that's going to have returns for you over the next few years, that's going to attract users over time, rather than topical related content that may be a flash in the pan today and gone tomorrow. So examples of evergreen content that you can write, case studies are evergreen content, stats and data, if you've got stats and data that you can pull out and write and put into a blog, not a white paper, a blog, right? Not something gated because it doesn't help Google, but something on a blog, then that could be really helpful. Product reviews, how-to guides, beginner's guides, storytelling, all these sorts of things can be ongoing things that can count as evergreen content and can gain you links and traffic over time for a long period of time. So the only one here that I want to be careful about, and I'm going to say, I probably have said this previously, are lists and maybe checklists, depending on how you view this, right? But lists, I feel it's a really common thing for lazy SEO writers to be writing lists. The top 5 things you should do to hire somebody. The top 5 things you should consider. When have you ever searched for the top 5 of anything? You've never done it. I can almost guarantee that none of you have ever done it, and you probably never will, right? What you want is an answer to a question. Nobody's saying, hey, I wonder what the top 5, whatever, unless it's something really, really that makes sense. The top 5 biggest countries in the world, the top 5 countries by GDP makes total sense. But no one's asking, the top 5, I don't know, whatever, SaaS, the top 5 SaaS solutions for doing XYZ thing, right? They're searching for how to do XYZ thing, and then they're finding a list of these of SaaS companies, or they're finding a how-to written by a SaaS company that then says, hey, it's really easy to do this. You can do this in 10 minutes instead of 25 minutes if you use our software, and we have all these other benefits, et cetera, et cetera. So just be careful when you're planning content and writing content. Lists suck. They're a sucky experience for most people, and they're boring. They're boring to read and they're boring to write. So just think about that. It's not saying a never, but it's definitely a most of the time I wouldn't do it. So evergreen content example. So here's a great example from moz.com. Moz.com is basically one of the most old school sort of like places to learn about SEO. They are an SEO tool as well for rank tracking and things like that, a little bit like Ahrefs is that I've mentioned a number of times here. And they wrote the beginner's guide to SEO. Years and years and years ago, when I first got into SEO, this was a big thing that they just released and they just come out with, and it was everyone loved it, right? So if you have a look here, you can see that referring domains for that piece of content. This is all pulled for this particular page. Over time, we're at almost 25,000. So 25,000 different websites are linking to this beginner's guide to SEO, right? That's a lot, right? And you can see it goes all the way back to 2014. The same is below. You can see organic traffic. We only go back to 2016 there, but you can see how that sort of ups and downs and ups and downs, at one point peaking out at 150, 160,000 visits a month for just this one bit, right? This is just one beginner's guide. This isn't the rest of the site whatsoever, right? So writing these sorts of things, the beginner's guide things, these sorts of evergreen content, doesn't need to be a beginner's guide, but can really continue to attract traffic and links. And the best part about it is, if this gets outdated, because it's evergreen content, it's something that people are going to want to know and understand over time. A short update on this yearly or as often as it needs it, you know, something big changes, you might want to update parts of it. That's all it takes. You don't have to rewrite the whole thing. You don't have to redesign the whole thing 90% of the time. I know that Moz did a redesign of this maybe 2 years ago. But other than that, it was the same. It looked the same, everything. The content changed from time to time as SEO things change, but they didn't redesign anything for basically, 5, 6, 7 years. It looked exactly the same. It wasn't the best designed piece of content ever, but it was really informative and people loved it. So that's the power of evergreen content. Topical content is the opposite. Topical content is all this stuff about newsjacking and trend chasing, opinion pieces and industry news. Now, this can be really helpful if you play this strategy correctly. And if you've got a beat on your market and you really think that you can establish yourself as that leader, you can absolutely do this. However, I think that it is one of those things where you're riding the fine line and you want to make sure that you've got your evergreen content already set up here with results generating like this before you engage in something like this, right? Before you engage in, hey, there's a newest update on the cannabis industry, on SEO industry, on whatever industry you service with your SaaS, right? So here's an example from Search Engine Roundtable. I forget, there's so many of them. There's Search Engine Land, Optimize, there's a lot. Anyway, so he's probably one of the best and the biggest in terms of keeping up with what's happening with Google. He does a YouTube video every Friday, a full recap every week of what's changed in search this week, etc. It's really useful information if you work in the industry. If you don't work in the industry, it's easy to get bogged down in a lot of the details that maybe won't matter. But I put this as an example because he's extremely popular and for good reason. He's done this for years and years and years, right? Now this is one of his posts that he released here on December 29th of 2020. We're now in February 2022 as I record this. And you can see that the referring domains for this particular piece of content jacked up very fast to about just over 50, right? In January 2021. So just before, I'd say, because it's December 29. So about a couple of days after he wrote this. And now you can see that there's nothing going on, right? You can see that they've gone down. People have removed links probably, or updated links to a better resource. You can see the organic traffic for this particular page is just basically sat flat according to Ahrefs anyway. Now, I'm sure that it did get traffic organically originally, but you can see here, like, it's a conceptualization basically. Like, he's done this for years. He's one of the best. He's got a ton of links. This is a really strong website, really well known in the space, really authoritative. And even in this area, this is just not something that's continued on, right? This is not something that's continued to provide value for him because it's topical, right? To do this, to continue to get value out of it, to continue to get SEO and organic traffic. Barry Schwartz, the guy who runs this site, has obviously got to continue to release this stuff, right? So you can never take your foot off the pedal in this scenario. It's a little bit like posting and being relatively popular on social media. If you've got tons of followers on social media and you stop posting for a month, you're going to lose a lot of traffic to your profile, lose a lot of, maybe buyers to your merch site or whatever it is, because you've just let your foot off the gas pedal. You can't do that if you're going to do topical content. Versus evergreen content, you can set it up, you can do it promotion, you can get its initial base, initial people excited about it. And from there, you can continue to have success after success after success without having to worry about it. And you can probably use that as your driver to start thinking about topical content afterwards. Right. That's all we have for this particular video. If I go all the way back up the top, we'll do a quick recap. We've got in this video, we've covered what content you should write. Landing page, blog content, customer support content. We covered what should drive that, right? Keyword data, customer feedback, and informational necessity. These things should be driving what you write. We covered how to choose the keywords, what your unicorn keywords look like. They're high intent, high volume, and low difficulty. But you want to be choosing these strategically, right? And maybe you won't have this trifecta all the time, but you want to keep this in mind and keep an eye out for them. And we looked at good content versus bad content. You know, good content being keyword targeted, linking to relevant sources internally in your own site and externally on other people's sites, have images, and be as long as it needs to be. And finally, evergreen, I think it's your traffic driver over time. It's the best play for you early on. Topical content is what you do once you've already got that established traffic base and you are ready to sort of be a bit more of a thought leader, maybe moving in the space more. That's all we have time for. I'll see you in the next video, and we'll cover on-page factors and get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of like what an on-page SEO is and what it looks like, and what the good basis of it are versus maybe, you know, what a bad on-page SEO experience is. Thanks.